Hello there, Reject Nation. I'm Greg Alba.
I'm John Humphrey.
And I'm Stacey Howard.
Look at us, we're professionals.
What up, what up?
Now that the embargo has been released and everyone has gotten their review up, we figured we'd wait a while and let ours go up later so we don't get lost in the mix. Yeah. I don't know if that was a bad call on my end or not. Let's see how this video performs. We're gonna talk about Captain Marvel today, guys. Yeah. Non-spoiler review. We will be doing a spoiler review later on this week. You probably won't be joining us because you're so busy and all those things.
Yeah, super busy.
And oh, Stacey, transition. What are you busy with these days?
Oh my gosh, so many things. But the thing I'm most excited about is that I am helping to plan and organize Molten Festa! This is a film festival we are throwing in Hollywood at the Egyptian Theater. Legendary film critic Leonard Maltin himself, along with his family, Jesse Maltin and Alice Maltin, is throwing Molten Fest. This is a film festival dedicated to film fans, cinephiles. You're gonna get feature films, short films, documentaries, special events, receptions, all kinds of fun stuff with incredible special guests like Doug Benson to play the Leonard Maltin game. That's gonna be epic. You got Holly Payne, you got Joe Dante, you got some incredibly talented filmmakers, producers, actors. The whole slate, the whole lineup's gonna be announced later, but you can get your weekend badges on sale right now at leonardmaltin.com/MaltinFest, you guys. Tickets are live. It's gonna be incredible. Yes!
Woo! Louis C.K.'s gonna be performing there.
Oh, man.
Morgan Freeman's making a guest appearance.
Yep.
So many
all
films
your
produced by Harvey
favorite
Weinstein.
people will be there.
All the best people in Hollywood that are not problematic will be there.
It's gonna be a good time. Well, make sure to go do that today. We might stop by there. Let's talk about Captain Marvel now, shall we? Now that I have finally seen this movie, I am no longer sexist. And I also hate white men, according to the internet of what Brie Larson... Actually, I haven't followed anything. I literally read one thing, Brie Larson hates white men, and my mind went, there's probably more to this story than...
Yeah.
There it is.
There's never more to the story than the headline. The headline says everything. It's 100%.
I'm like, I have zero opinion about that. I don't know anything about that. We're gonna keep it non-spoiler. What are your guys' general thoughts on this movie? Let's start with Stacey, because it's, female-led feminist movie.
Yeah, boobies. Guys,
Boobies!
And there are so many in this film.
So
let me tell
many.
you.
No, there are actually no boobs. I had a really fun time with this. I thought it was a solid standalone Marvel film, a great origin story to introduce me to a character that I really knew nothing about. I don't read comic books, so going into these films, I judge them solely on the cinematic experience alone. I don't bring anything into it in terms of the history of the character and everything. I had a good time with it. I really liked it. What'd you guys think?
I wound up having a blast with this too, actually. I mean, I appreciated, especially seeing the movie, that they held back so much from the trailers. And yeah, this was one of the Marvels that kind of pulled me in immediately and didn't let me go until the end. And my only gripes are kind of minimal. So I had a great time with this.
Well, here's my opinion.
Ooh, get ready.
My experience with the film, I enjoyed it a lot. I really had a really good time and really fun time watching it. I wouldn't say I liked it a lot, though. For me, it's a very mixed bag. There are things I really like. There are things about it that I actually love. But there's a few things, just a few, that I feel pretty strongly about that are not really steered in a positive direction for me.
Women?
And, only the women in this film, I thought... Call it Captain Nick Fury. Sort of been a good one. The things that I really did appreciate about this movie that I think everyone would be on board for, it goes without saying, the visual effects in this film are absolutely dynamite. The production design here was great. I love the costumes. I really enjoyed the makeup aesthetic as well.
And there's a lot of makeup.
There's a lot of makeup. There's so much makeup.
A lot of creatures.
Almost every movie has makeup.
Well, no, but there are a lot of practical creatures.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, there's some cool world building in here as well. I really think the supporting cast in the film is spectacular, and you don't often say that about the standalone films or the whole supporting ensemble. Like Nick Fury, Sam Jackson was awesome in the film. I loved his buddy cop dynamic that he had with Brie Larson in the movie. A lot of people talk about the cat Goose, and I think a lot of what makes Goose really shine in the movie is actually Sam Jackson's interaction with the cat.
He makes kissy faces to the cat, which is what I do every time I see both of you guys. I'm like, oh hey Greg, no, I really like that we get to see a young, energetic Nick Fury. I mean, he's not this, old, grizzled guy that's seen it all and every kind of alien and race and saved the world a million times. This is a guy who, until, the day the film starts, had no idea about what's going on, but he just kind of accepts it and rolls with it because he was like, I like this. Like, he was on board from the second he met her. Was really the heart of the film, in my opinion, was Nick Fury.
John? Do you like Samuel L. Jackson?
Yeah, I loved him in this.
So John's in that weird position where we say everything and then he has to, I agree.
Agreed. He's definitely a favorite part of the movie for me, and I thought that the buddy dynamic really shone out. And the car chase that he's involved with was one of my favorite action sequences of the film, and it was an example of a way in which the movie starts to feel like a 90s movie without having to make a 90s joke. And so I thought he did a whole lot for that, and I thought the de-aging they did on him, whatever they did, looked spectacular. Because I could tell it was there on Clark Gregg.
Yeah.
Is that his
He
name?
looked a little bit like Dennis Quaid meshed with his own face.
Dennis Quaid.
Yeah.
And I also think the performer that we all know he's a great actor, but usually in these kind of films they don't really get the chance to shine. I thought he would be the actor who's underutilized, where you're like, man, they really should have taken advantage of having him. But they did more with him, and it would be spoiler territory if we went into it. Ben Mendelsohn as the leader of the Skrulls in this movie. Did not expect this performance from this guy, and I really can't go into details because it would totally ruin the movie for you. It's a great performance.
He's not just the same character you've seen him play in like Ready Player One and Star Wars Rogue One.
And he's not a cliche villain.
He's not that same character he's been playing for a few movies now.
He's like the go-to of that guy.
Yeah.
Like a huge,
in
all this huge
corporate dick.
franchise, corporate dick called Ben Mendelsohn.
Lashana Lynch as Maria Rambo. She comes in late into the film. She's so good. Like, her first scene that has a good amount of dialogue, not her very first scene, but there's one scene where she has a pretty good amount of dialogue late into the movie. It got me emotionally hooked. Like, she is really, really good in this movie. I do think the supporting cast is really cool. I thought there was some really good action in here as well. Other than a few moments that had some hand-to-hand combat where I had a hard time telling what was going on because there's a lot of editing with the hand-to-hand combat, I still think there were some pretty stellar action sequences. My biggest issue with the movie, and I found that after I got out of the film, I talked with a couple of people. I let other people give their opinions first, and I talked with a few people today about it. We're all kind of in unison about this. I know there's going to be people who are on the complete opposite spectrum of our opinion on it. For me, my main issue was actually Brie Larson's performance in this movie. I found her to be a rather two-dimensional performance. She's very sarcastic, she's sly, she's slick.
She's a rebel.
But that's about it. For me, I felt like she's got the surface level down of it, but I didn't really feel a nuance in there. I didn't really feel this depth in there, and I'll let you guys elaborate in a second. Like, to get my point across, I was sort of watching it going, this felt like it could have used a little bit of that. Actually, you know what? I feel like it could have used a little bit of Wonder Woman meets Jessica Jones. You know how in Born Identity, he's a guy who has like all these incredible like powers, essentially, these incredible skills, and no one can beat him, no one can take him down. But there's this whole longing for like, what's my identity? Where do my powers come from? What's my past? And you could feel that all underneath. And I felt like they could have infused that here, but just with the Captain Marvel humor with her performance on top of that. That's why I was kind of referencing a Wonder Woman-like character with a Jessica Jones-like character, because Jessica Jones has that similar thing where she's very sarcastic on the surface, very snarky on the surface, but there's a lot of layers underneath all that. For me, watching this movie, I couldn't tell if it was a directing choice or purely an acting choice, because in general, Brie Larson is one of the greatest working actors and actresses today. She's without a doubt one of the best. So I was a little let down by her because I thought the physicality of her character was good. I thought the action scenes of her character were really good. For me, through most of the movie, I really just felt a really surface level performance with the same kind of one-note delivery for most of the jokes, the same kind of snarky smile throughout. I didn't feel much for her character. I didn't connect with her character. So by the time you get to the big Captain Marvel moment, I was like, that's cool visual effects and some cool action, but I don't really care.
It's interesting you talked about Jessica Jones, because in Captain Marvel, you see a few scenes of her as a younger girl. You see a couple of examples, just flashes of why she acts the way she does, but it's just the movie telling you how you should feel about it and how you should feel about her and view her. It's not her saying why she feels the way she feels or how she feels about certain situations. She doesn't really talk about the emotional weight of things that have been revealed or go on as the movie progresses. It just kind of like tries to make you feel that way versus earning your emotion.
Yes, because there's a big moment in the movie where later, like way late into the movie, the moments you're talking about are very expositional. This is how you're supposed to feel. This is what's going on.
Right.
But yet I'm not seeing that underneath her perform. I'm not feeling that for her. And there's a moment where she's like, I don't even know who I am. And I felt like that big emotional moment wasn't really felt for me personally, because that felt like that should have been a build up to that moment throughout the movie. Instead, I'm like, oh, okay, now we finally got this one scene of her saying that. But everything leading up to that, I just didn't feel for her in it. But I will clarify too, is like, you know, when I first saw Chris Hemsworth as Thor, I thought he was fine. Chris Evans, I thought he was fine as Captain America. But as they evolved in the MCU, I grew to really love them. And I have a feeling, because it's fucking Brie Larson.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling that maybe in Avengers Endgame, like whatever they do with her under the hands of different directors and a different point in her life, I feel like I could probably latch onto her then, you know? But guys, what are your overall feelings about Brie Larson's performance in the movie?
If I detract anything, I would just put that on the writing mostly, because I do think that a lot of the supporting characters do a lot of the emotional legwork for making you feel for her, and I think part of that is just because the plot is so kinetic and it's always moving. There's a lot to do. For me, with her performance, it's like I've given a million passes to films with guy characters who are exactly like that, who have less personality. And for this, you know, I came in and the big question mark was, what's her personality going to be like? Because these promo photos just aren't communicating it. And early on, I was like, I don't know. I'm enjoying her attitude and her energy. I wasn't necessarily like, she's my favorite Marvel character ever. But I didn't really have any issues. And I thought at least some of the visual motifs they used, especially flipping through those memories on rapid. And all the memories are very kind of a specific variety. And so the visual element of that drove it home for me. And I think the critical element is I just wanted to know, and thus I cared. So like, yeah, the character, I think the film could have taken some time to have her have some internal struggle. On the other side, I'm like, she's only got 6 years worth of memory and she's a soldier trained to manage her emotions at all times. So I get kind of maybe why this isn't the most emotionally forward performance.
See, I don't think it needs to be the most emotionally forward performance. I mean, we briefly talked about it. Have you seen the movie Equilibrium?
I haven't, no.
It's a Christian Bale movie, and in that movie, they're living in a world where basically everyone is supposed to be emotionless. That's like the whole point. Everyone's supposed to suppress their emotions, and our main character in that movie, even though he's emotionless, you could tell there's something underneath the surface. And that's, you know, when you think of like their funny characters in the MCU, like Tony Stark or Jessica Jones, with their really sarcastic sense of humor, you could always tell that there's some kind of inner conflict underneath that. And that's essentially what was missing for me in her performance. Like, they keep having all this talk about like, what's her identity? Or she has these rage problems, but it's not really shown in most of the scenes. She's just kind of funny, handling business. So the emotional obstacle, there is an arc, essentially. I just didn't really feel for it. It kind of has a little bit of Superman syndrome because she's fucking Captain Marvel, you know? Yeah. Where I'm like, there's no real threat here for her physically, because she could just beat, like, literally almost every physical obstacle usually came down to just get a little stronger, just punch
she's
her
like
way
her
out
own
of it.
worst threat.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Well, and the arc is her realizing where her power comes from and you know, the nature of all that.
I still feel like
it's one of those self-actualization arcs.
I still feel like for like even the stoic characters, there should still be that additional, because that's a human performance. Stoic is usually surface, and there's something underneath it. That's my main gripe. But like I said, I feel like I don't want to make this like the shit on Brie Larson fest, because that's not what it is for me. That's the thing I feel most strongly about, because I'm like, Captain Marvel's the lead character. They keep saying she's gonna be the new face of the MCU. I guess a lot of this does come down to sort of expectation. And the one thing I know about the whole controversy from like fucking dumb asses on Twitter and stuff have been like, don't watch this, watch Alita Battle Angel instead, you know? And I feel like that's such a stupid thing. What I will say is I feel like Alita, I think this is a much better movie than Alita Battle Angel. But have you seen it yet?
I have.
Oh, you saw it for Valentine's Day.
Oh yeah, I did.
That's what everyone should have done.
Wine and you know, we went to see Alita Battle Angel.
I feel like a lot of what that movie did not do well, and this movie did great in. The thing that I thought Alita Battle Angel did better was essentially a similar thing where Alita's a girl with all these powers and she's got a sarcastic and fun personality, but there's a lot of inner conflict underneath all of that. And I want to know my past. And I felt like that movie did it really well. And I could have used just a little bit more of that. I feel like I spent way too much time on this point because I really, but she's the main character. Yeah, she's the main character. So I do, that's my main issue with it. Yeah.
But that's really, I think, the only issue that people are going to hark on, because if you look at the movie as a whole, this is a great film. You want to compare
really
it to other pieces of shit out there. I mean, this is solid performances.
Yeah.
It's well balanced. It's fun. It looks fantastic. So I would put it on par with, like, first Thor or Captain America: The First Avenger,
like
or
a good Phase 1 movie.
A good Phase 1 movie. Yeah. This is like a solid step towards getting her self-actualization in that character arc you talked about, and really getting to know her and having that emotional punch later. Like, could they have done that in this film? Probably. They didn't really bring it home.
They're trying to do a lot of plot in this movie. Yeah.
There's a lot that they're trying to do.
You got the Jude Law plot line. You got the Annette Bening plot line. You got the Earth plot line. And honestly, there's one thing. I don't know when you guys felt hooked by this movie.
Jude Law, smoke show.
Right away. That was it. Yeah.
Receded hairline and all. I don't care. Jude Law's great.
2 minutes in, I was there. Yeah.
I was in it pretty much from the get-go. When they started digging around in her mind, when the scrolls are digging around her mind, that was when it clinched me, probably.
Exactly.
But I was sitting there going, "Oh wow, here we go."
Yeah, it kind of felt like a mesh of Star Trek meets Star Wars.
I got a bunch of vibes.
Are you just saying that because the Kroll had little pointy ears?
Well, no, the whole
the thing.
I wouldn't say. I'd say more Star Trek and less Star Wars actually for this movie.
There's Star Trek in there. I mean, when they're on the Kree homeworld, I was getting like Blade Runner or even Alita vibe, like very cyberpunk kind of vibes from there. When they're on Earth and stuff, it feels legitimately, at least when they're not pumping a '90s joke at you, like a '90s, cop movie.
That was a main issue for me too. I was born in 1990, so I'm a 90s child.
The internet was slow.
Yeah, there's
a joke about that.
There were some times in this movie where they just really hammer home 90s nostalgia. Not like sometimes it was a little bit much. I've heard some people complain. There's a fight in the finale where they play a 90s song in the movie, and
I liked that.
You see, I like that too, and I know a few people who really don't like that.
Because Guardians of the Galaxy is all like 70s and 80s music, and that's harping on that nostalgia, so why not this?
Well, you see, okay, and I talked to John about this. The thing with that, of why I think in Guardians it works, is because the music is so essential to the character of Star-Lord. Like, he's always listening to the music and everything like that. Where in here, Captain Marvel, because of her memory loss and everything, doesn't really have 90s nostalgia like the character doesn't. So when they start playing it, it feels a little forced sometimes and less within the realm of the character per se. And I love whenever this movie decided to go full on weird. There's a lot of weird shit in this movie. Weirder than any other MCU film. Like that toying with the mind sequence that you see in the trailer that's teased where she's upside down. There's like blue shock on her head. That whole sequence, I fucking loved it. And there were later scenes in the finale where I'm like, damn, that's some crazy, weird shit, and I love it, you know?
And I gotta give them one of the things I appreciated most about this movie. I thought it was really tight overall, especially with how kinetic it is. It's well-paced, it's well-edited, even in the visual motifs with cutting from one scene to the next with, like, really someone's kicking a door, and then they're kicking a door into the next scene. Like, it's... But one thing I appreciated the most on the heels of that is that it jumps between a lot of different tones and styles and genres in what I thought was a pretty fluid fashion, because you're going from a whole different world to Earth in the 90s in the past to other different worlds to like the atmosphere just outside of Earth, and it never feels weird or like a Frankenstein monster. And I feel like that is just an attest to how well Marvel has done building up the boundaries of their universe and expanding those over time. And it did get me excited for the future of that.
And I'm excited. Like I said, like for me, I didn't really love Chris Evans as Captain America or Chris Hemsworth as Thor. I really started to latch onto them by the time we got to the first Avengers movie, though. And then that's her next movie is Endgame. So for me, I'm like, I have a feeling there's probably going to be more like, now that she knows her identity and knows these things, I imagine her character will have drastically changed or evolved in the course of 20-something years. But keep a lookout for a spoiler review. Overall, I did really enjoy it. I do have my gripes with the Brie Larson portrayal, and I feel like I'm not sure where that issue is, if it's just her acting or if it's the writing or directing. Some people really pinpoint the writing on that. Overall, I'd recommend it. I think it's a really fun time. We got a pretty positive recommendation. Solid installment in the Marvel movie. Yes. All right. Anywho, guys, have you seen Captain Marvel yet? A lot of people who are not part of press were there, so maybe you've seen it already. Let us know what you think of it below and what hopes do you have have for it. Hey, Goose. You
We
guys,
just- yeah, that's funny.
you guys can subscribe to the Reject Nation. Click that notification bell, and hey, check out Stacey Howard on Instagram and Twitter, and make sure to get your tickets for where. There's a link in the description box.
Yes.
You know what it is. See you guys.